everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Spotlight on CS Ops, where we're throwing the spotlight on people who are making it happen in the customer success operations world. I'm here, as always, my co-host, Jean Noran.
Hey Matthew, how are you?
Excellent. And so we've had some guests from Canada on previously, and so I decided it was time to put my finger on the scale the other direction. And we are welcoming Wayne Dilworth, fellow Texan, to the podcast today. Wayne, we're so glad you're
Awesome.
here. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to join you. I feel like I'm in the cool kids club with you now that I'm part of this great podcast series.
Well, it's awesome to have you. I know you have spent a lot of your career in the Gainsight universe. You're a senior Gainsight admin right now. So tell us, we'd love to hear these entry stories. Tell us how you sort of ended up here or there, as the case may be.
Sure. Well, boy, I invented customer success, just like everybody else, right? I always like to joke with that because so many of us started back before it seemed like it was a formal discipline. And so I was working for a company that we recognized that we were not very easy to work with. Onboarding was tough, getting the value was tough. And we said, well, how do we improve that? And so we formed a team of project managers and I was in an education company, some ex-teachers who were good at coaching customers. And we put that team together and started talking about, okay, what processes can we put in place? What tools can we put in place to help with onboarding and help with that value attainment? At the time, I built everything in Google Sheets. I had close to 300 sheets that were all communicating into a single dashboard. It was a wonderfully complex, very fragile system. And as we expanded, said this is not going to continue as our platform. So we went on the Gainsight. And at the time, they tagged Keith Mattis, who you had over here on an interview recently, to be the admin. And they told me, okay, now you're a CSM. And I was like, well, I can do that job, but it's not necessarily what I think my strengths align to. So in that role, we attended Pulse in, I think it was 2019. And there was a whole bunch of us, about a dozen CSMs went to the Pulse event, and everyone was in the same class. And I noticed that the admins were going in another door. So I snuck into that extra door, sat down in the corner and just tried to hide, and then just soaked in all of the technology and capability that Gainsight had. And I said, this is what we need to establish better processes and get beyond just documenting our activities. A lot of the shallow work that people do with Gainsight when they start, but how do we take process flows literally? They had flowcharts on the screen for JOs. How do we take advantage of that flow and process to extend and expand our the coverage for our customers? So rather than just being high touch, a lot of human touch, how do we go to that low touch and repeatable good processes? So I was sold. Let's see. So I was a CSM at the time. I had a book of business. I was managing that. But I kept looking at the tool and saying we can do more with it. So I asked them to give me 2,000 accounts and Journey Orchestrator and let me go nuts. I planned it all out, had a great project. And then COVID hit and they pulled the plug on everything. So I know we're kind of going long into this story at this point, but while I was going through COVID, I was furloughed and eventually laid off. And that's where I turned to the Gainsight community to say, okay, what does my career look like next? And kind of danced around, do I go Salesforce? Do I go Gainsight? And really the passion I had was around CS. And improving the relationship with customers. And so I gambled on Gainsight, and I'm thrilled that I did so.
That's a cool story. And I was looking at your LinkedIn just before this actually, and as I look at through your experience and some of your credentials, I mean, there is a boatload of credentials. Like not only do you have, your experience that you just described, but you were previously, program manager, you've led a lot of projects, you've got your bachelor's of business and information systems, you've got an MBA, you're a scout leader you've been in the scouts for like 10 years. What was it? Habitat for Humanity for 10 years, Meals on Wheels for 5 years, Gainsight Product Council. You're also part of the University of Houston, I guess, on their CX advisory board. Like, you're someone that clearly throws yourself at a lot of things. Is that, and you seem to be loving every minute of it. Is that
I
something that's like part of your DNA, or like is that something that's ingrained in the Wayne very deeply, that you're just like, let me have at it. I
Aimed in
want
the
to jump
way.
in, and I'm jumping in the deep end.
I think, and you kind of meet this or see this in a lot of people that I meet, is that if I stay busy, I'm more productive. If I slow down, I get kind of bored, and my my brain wanders about, what else can I be working on, and so I find that if I'm just very busy with things, then I stay focused. And I'm also a father of four boys. Thank goodness they're now grown to adults. But that too kept me running forever. So, I got my MBA when we were having our, oh gosh, third child. And so I had toddlers running around while I was trying to do school and still work and everything else. So yeah, I just like to stay busy. I think that's good, and that goes back to the other thing that you hear a lot about people in this industry, is that kind of lifelong learning and educational mindset. It's always like, okay, what can I learn next that could potentially help me moving forward?
Very cool.
Makes a lot of sense. I'm impressed because I think you're probably the first person we've talked to who snuck into a class in operations instead of out of one, and then you saw your career blossom from there. But the other thing I heard, and it was kind of at the end where you said, "Oh, I learned this technical. I started getting involved. Okay, COVID threw me a wrench, but then there was this community of people that I also discovered." Uh, sort of along this journey, and you're pretty active out there in the community. I've tapped you on the shoulder more than probably my fair share of times for this, that, or the other, or just to gossip, truth be told. But tell us about the community and
Oh
like
yeah.
how you found your spot in it.
So you're referring to the Global Gainsight Admins board on Slack, which is a brainchild of Jean and others that started up. Was it right just before COVID or during COVID? I don't really know when it
I think it
started, but I
was
know I was
just
sorry,
before, yeah, sorry,
just
just
before.
before, but
So I was probably member number 50 or something like that. I know Keith just said, "Hey, you might want to go take a look at this and see what you can do." But it was a tremendous opportunity for me to start learning the lingo and start learning the tactics of CS operations and Gainsight admin while I was still not a full blown admin. And in fact, when I was out of work, I leaned heavily on that group to help train me how to be an admin when I didn't have a tenant to work in. So I actually ended up getting my level 3 Gainsight certification while I was out of work and didn't really have a tenant to work with. So it was a huge challenge. And if not for the people in the group, I would not have had a reboot in my career, just flat out, because that credential. And in fact, I when I interview, I say I have a network, right? You should not expect a Gainsight admin or a CS ops professional to know everything. You should expect that if they don't know, they're going to go find out. And so that's where the network really brings a lot of value. I've made a ton of friends along the way from the group as well. And so I look forward to our annual events where we can get together and just even socialize, because literally it saved my career being a part of that group. And so I, along with others, are really trying to pay that forward I know a lot of people who are trying to break into CS ops and break into admin, and I try to help them out any way that I can as well.
Love it. Absolutely love it. That's really why the whole community started, right? Like just paying it forward and the ability to like connect with peers and share and learn and grow and everything. Like it's just you're an amazing example of why the community is so awesome. And so it's great to hear that. Is there like, throwing that must have been a little bit hard, right? Like learning a system without being actually in the system. I mean, I'd imagine it's a little bit like trying to learn how to become a car mechanic with actually never touching an engine. Um, is it, is there some tricks that you kind of figured out along the way that, like, I don't know, do you close your eyes and imagine you're touching the engine and you've got things going, and
And
what
the
does
good
that
news
look
was
like?
it wasn't a never touched, right? Because I had worked in Gainsight prior to that. I had done some administrative work, but really it was tough when people were like, "Well, how many rules have you built?" And none, right? So it's because I didn't have access. I didn't have admin access to do that. So it's leveraging what I've learned in the past about scripting languages and that sort of thing, thinking about databases, making sure I understand object-oriented design, how data interrelates, how can I plan on delivering data of quality. There's a whole ton of things that you can do. I joke quite often that I wish I could use SQL in Gainsight, right? Because I could definitely work in SQL and really focus on the joins and making sure that I'm getting those insights out of the data in a logical way without having the tool there. And I think that was one of the things that I recognize in the CS ops training is that you don't want to start with your tool. You want to start with process. And that really resonated with me because if I could understand the process, then I can make the tool do it, or I could find a tool to augment the tools to do it. But I understood what I was delivering and where the value was coming from, and not just, hey, here's a beautiful report and it's in this format. So I think, yeah, it was tough. It was tough. And now that I see everyone else have access to level 1 certification, level 2 certification, I was one of the people that advocated for having sandboxes for people that were learning. And thank goodness Gainsight's doing that for learners now. They are a huge supporter of bringing people into the discipline. But that was really key, and that was probably my number one goal when they asked me, okay, how do we get more admins into this arena? I said, give them a sandbox, just like Salesforce does. There's no reason why you can't stand up a sandbox for them to learn in, and then you're going to have a better output on the back end.
Yeah, 100%.
Lower those barriers. Yeah, that makes sense. You referenced something, Wayne, in there where you're like, you're starting to get good at this. You're looking at process. Then once you know the process, the roles, responsibilities, you know what to build. Now, you've had your hands on several instances over your career. Tell us about some of the things that you found really effective when you're stepping into a new company, new instance, a new anything. Like what are some of your day one, week one, month one, quarter one approaches that you take when you're arriving somewhere new?
Mm-hmm. So I think really understanding what's already in place, exporting data architecture, getting a good map of what things look like, understanding your features and your high usage areas, that kind of thing. Things that the analyzer and Gainsight can output. I think over and above that, looking at the data that's integrated. So what are your inputs and outputs from your CS system? Building out a data dictionary was really key. That's something I almost always reference when someone comes to me and says, "Hey, I want to build out a report or build out a CTA based on this data point." Well, if I have a data dictionary, I can immediately tell them, well, that exists or it doesn't. So now it's we start in hours or we start in months, right? So
okay, I'm going to interrupt and
yeah.
ask you a question, pun partially intended. Like, how do you define what a data dictionary is?
For me, it's literally a spreadsheet, right? It's just a spreadsheet of the fields, what the source is, and what the any kind of ETL that's happening on the data, and where it's coming into my
Okay.
CS. So
Google
so
Sheets makes its appearance again, right? You thought you were free, and then you weren't.
it's always in Google Sheets. So, and honestly, I actually have in my current one, I have the SQL that generates it too, so I can even go down another layer and see where that data is coming from. So you can pick it apart and really understand where do I need to make tweaks to expand the data sources to give us what we need to get the work done. That's all technical, but a lot of this job is not technical, and so chair sides, sitting down with leaders and saying, okay, what's your number one value prop that you're currently getting from CS operations or your system, and what's the next value prop you're after, and so trying to document what's important to people is very key to being successful in the role. And there are things that just sort of sit around in my busy brain, because I know that there's going to be either a product owner or a product sponsor that says, this is what your roadmap looks like. But I always have those pet projects in the back of my brain that says, hey, I could tuck this sub project in here, or I could also add this into the data flow, or I could do something else that would lend value to this person. So we can leverage that and start bundling some of those value props together. Or you just have those aha moments when you're doing anything. You're mowing the lawn, you go, oh, now I know how to fix that, and you run in the house and quick make some notes about how am I going to do that next. So yeah, I think doing chair sides, understanding what people are trying to get out of their processes and systems, pain points. Pain points are huge. I'll give you a quick example that we had. One of the companies I worked for had about 2,500 accounts per CSM. And it's like, you're going to spend up to an hour a year with your customer, and that's it. And that includes meeting prep. How? Right? So how do we shave minutes here and there in their meeting prep, or their surfacing data so that they know that they're going to have a valuable conversation, or what can we do to help them literally shave a minute off of their prep, or the work that they have in that account. So just kind of keeping those important value props in mind.
That's so good. Like I think you're touching on so many things that are like super helpful for newcomers, for people that are in the field currently. Like data dictionary is prime and parcel to what I like to do as well, like figuring out the architecture, what's currently in the system. And then yeah, you're talking about some of the actions. You started the call though with talking about like you were thinking about going from Salesforce to Gainsight. Like some of what you're saying, I think is like probably incredibly, like it doesn't matter which tool you use. Like you're talking a lot about Gainsight. But most tools, I think, like, and based on your experience, you've got business information systems background. I assume this is not something that you started in the last few years here as you've become a Gainsight admin. This must have been things that you've sort of leveraged along your entire career independent of the system. Is that?
Definitely. And in fact, a lot of the credit goes back to my first job out of college. I worked for an operations manager as his IT guru, and basically handled all things related to databases and all things related to the technology in a series of offices. But he gave me enough freedom to try to jump into things, right? So they the first real technology I started building relational databases in was Lotus Notes, which is really kind of dating how long I've been doing this kind of work, but very similar, right? Just object oriented and scripting languages. Understanding how you take volumes of data and surface what's important to the people when they need it. And so, yeah, a lot of that just has happened. Yeah, that's been going on for a long time. I think the other story, and I'll add, is if you want that story too, I don't know, but the project management side of things. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that too, just because one of the the things you put forward that would be a good thing to cover is just sort of what you wish you learned a long time ago. So you mentioned I have my PMP, and I've done a lot of project management and program management. I had a project that was an absolute disaster. Someone handed to me. It was a contract for a large school district, and we were losing money. They were fining us every year. It was just a disaster. And so I picked it apart. You figured out the operation. I streamlined it. It took me about 18 months to really get in order. And I did everything perfectly, right? It was delivered on time, on budget, on spec. It was faster than they wanted it and everything else. And I was like, okay, this is great. I made a ton of money for the company, and the customer canceled the contract. And I was like, why? Right? This doesn't make any sense. I did exactly what I'm supposed to do. And they said, number one, it cost us more money because we weren't able to fine you for bad delivery. And number two, it was quiet. We're used to our project managers calling us every week and tell us about all the problems that they have. You didn't call us almost at all because you just didn't have anything, and we just felt like you weren't servicing the account. And it was that day that I realized that it's not about what's important to me, it's what's important to the customer. What is the customer trying to attain? And I think that that's the big one that resonates for me for now, for why I could roll from project management into CS world and into CS ops, is that it has to be about what the customer is trying to attain. And as a CS ops professional, my customers are the internal CS folks. So what are they trying to attain? I always try to keep that goal in mind. It's not about what I'm trying to achieve. It's what I'm trying to help them achieve. So I know that was kind of like just tucked in there, but I wanted to get that one out there because
I think it was powerful.
It's
I think it's so
fascinating.
important.
Yep.
Like so important. It's always about what the customer believes. Like you could think that you've got all the wind beneath your sails, but if the customer is not aligned, right, what does it really matter?
Yep. So
Wayne, I have gotten to know you over the years, and I know you have a very interesting side hustle to me that has nothing. Well, I guess maybe tangentially there could be some customer success applications, but I would say no. So you have a fascinating side hustle, and I would love for you to share it if you're so willing.
You know what I'm doing in a couple hours here tonight?
Tell us.
About 3.5 hours from now, I am doing my side hustle. I like to play craps. And I go to charity casinos, or used to go to charity casinos and play for funny money because I don't want to lose real money. And I started talking to one of the business owners that ran these casinos, and he needed dealers. And so I became a craps dealer. And so I get my fix for 3 or 4 hours, depending on how long these parties are, as a dealer rather than as a player. And it's now gotten a little expanded a bit, and 3 of my sons are dealers as well. My wife deals on occasion. So tonight we have a party, and 2 boys and I are dealing craps for the night. Yeah, they deal everything. I've kind of whittled it down to just craps, but they'll deal roulette, blackjack, everything else.
Awesome.
So
I could just see the family Christmas card. You're all in like green visors, and maybe bow ties, maybe a bow tie appears or something. Just see it.
Yeah, and I'll extend it and say my son, who's at the University of Alabama, started his own casino company now.
Oh wow!
And so he is dealing. He has I don't know if I should say this, but he has tables in his dorm room that he uses to go out and deal. So it's really turning into a family business.
We'll take that part out if it gets anyone in trouble.
And are
He's moving out soon. So
any of the kids, any of the boys looking to go into CS ops? Have you convinced them to join this group?
My second oldest is actually level 1 certified for Gainsight. Wow. He was looking for some direction, and I said, well, let's sit down and put you in this and see if it's of interest. And there was a little bit of interest there, but now he's a math teacher at a high school. He's much more comfortable there. and the others want to be doctors. So I
Can't
don't
fault
think
them
that
for that.
they'll be landing in my footsteps. But there are plenty of skills to learn here about people management, process, technology. It's pervasive through all careers, honestly. So yeah, it's yeah.
So interesting. Wayne, give us, as we part or conclude here, give us a prediction. You've been around this for a while, right? I mean, I also worked on Lotus Notes, so I'm gonna get in there and date myself too. But I mean, you've been in CS world, CS ops, CSP, GSP, the Google Sheets platform. Give us a prediction where you think this whole ship that we're on is going.
Uh, I'm I'm still a little concerned about the artificial intelligence for CS. I think it's a great technology that needs to develop a little bit more. And what I'm talking about, the ones where there's actual virtual CSMs, and it's a fascinating technology. I just wonder if it's going to be able to focus on the customer as much as it would focus on the goal of the company serving them up. And so once they figured out that nugget, I think that would be good for the industry, but it also, does mean replacing humans. So for me right now, and I still strive for it every day, is how much can I automate that are time consuming, redundant processes so that our CSMs can focus on the human touch. There are things that our CSMs are so good about that they have to have the time to talk to a customer, really understand and really build that trusted relationship. And so we're not there yet. We need to automate more. We need to basically surface. I really want my CS system to, when a CSM logs in the morning, just get slapped in the face with, hey, this is what you need to do today. And hey, these are the things that are going to come up and slap you in the face if you're not paying attention. And so that's always what I strive for. And I think we still have work to do on that.
I like that. The ability to make CSMs more productive, I think, is critical, right? Like we've got to make sure that they're working as efficiently as possible. I agree with you on the rest of it. Like it's a bit of a black box. We don't know what the bots are deciding and how they're deciding. We can't incentivize them appropriately either with monetary remuneration or anything like that. So we'll see what kind of decisions they end up making in the future.
Yeah. I think we're moving in good directions with that, but yeah, as far as what comes next, I don't really know. I think self-serve is also getting kind of big, where our high touch customers are like, hey, I don't have the time to interact with you, so here's I want to tell you what's important to me. You just give me that information, and maybe we don't have to meet as much. Maybe we don't have to be as formal. It's just a canned information report, right? Almost like a cheat sheet that they get as customers that says, here's where we're going with you to help you achieve your value in an efficient way for them to consume to, for the customers to consume to. I think QBRs and EBRs are kind of a naughty word anymore, right? So how do we have the same impact in a more efficient way for customers and for CSMs?
I love it. I love that prediction, and I am curious to see where all of this thing ends up as well. So
one of the highlights of my year is when I'm at Pulse and someone I don't know comes up and says, I saw you, or I saw you on the group, or I saw you on the community, I saw you do a talk. Please do it. Please come say hi to all of us. We love it because people have helped us along the way, and we want to help you. So please introduce yourself. If there's anything that we can do, reach out.
Wayne, it's been a pleasure to have you. Thank you for sharing of yourself, both today, but just more in general, sharing of yourself with the community and sharing your story of how you became a part of this community.